Now ready to hear from. Thank you. Appreciate you coming forward.
Hi, my name's Jeff Stewart. I live on 13 Mile, and my comments are limited to that passing lane. It is a natural beauty road, and there's in the ordinance special treatment supposed to be paid to the widening of roads along natural beauty road. There isn't any other passing lanes on that whole mile, and there's way more densely populated subdivision entrances along that mile, and everybody seems to be getting along fine without the passing lane. So I would just encourage you to recommend to council that they not, include a passing lane. It's only 17 houses, and seem like with the apron they have coming in and out of their development, that would be sufficient to, keep it safe. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jackie Katz, and I've been a resident of Chelsea Crossing for almost 16 years now. I'm in lot 17. If you look at that, you can see it's kind of by the cul-de-sac and the water. I have many concerns. First of all, the beginning part of the subdivision has all that open space, and where I'm at, there's very little open space, and I have beautiful, huge trees just on the other side of where my property ends that will be taken down. I have a house that's going to be, real close. I'm very concerned about my property value. And then I have the water on that side. I have 4 children. There's this water here. I don't know, how it's going to be taken care of. I'm very concerned about that whole area, and I know that you brought that up, so I don't want to go more into that. And how really, we have these natural trees that have kept our basements completely dry. I've never had water ever. I haven't even had my sump pump go on. And we're sloped, it really goes down. It's much higher up there. And it's sloped down, and I'm really concerned if there is heavy rains, what's going to happen? Am I going to now have a flooded basement? So these are some of the concerns that I have. I know he was talking about putting in pine trees in that area, but that doesn't cover behind my house. It does a little bit. I'm lot 17, so you see I have the corner right there, but it doesn't cover the other area, so water is still going to flow down there. And I know that I can't change the elevation on my property, so I have a concern about that. I am hoping that you guys will have it at least move back to the 15 feet that is in the ordinance. I mean, that would be helpful, but I do honestly feel that this is all built for this lot 9 and not maybe looking at the best use of the space as a subdivision. I'm concerned that the subdivisions south of me, there's 2 of them where I think there's 3 houses in one, and there's very few houses built. So they're going to clear all this land and have no houses for 20 years? I don't know. So, thank you.
Good morning, or maybe it's afternoon already, sorry. Just flew in from California, so I'm a little disoriented already today. Anyway, my name is Scott Alexander, and I am also from Chelsea Crossing, lot 18, pretty close to the additional lot that you just spoke about. So, we've heard a little bit this morning about how great it is to be an attorney and listen. Well, I'll tell you, I've listened to every one of the neighbors in our subdivision, and there is a much longer list of issues than we've covered today. I probably don't have enough time to cover them, but I would like to cover a couple important points. We've talked about that 15-foot setback. Seems to be some discussion about whether that's a requirement or not. Section 27-83 requires a minimum distance of 15 feet. I don't believe it is a question of whether it should be, could be. It's a question of needs to be. Although I'll tell you that even the 15 feet doesn't address the issue. Even with 15 feet, in order to put an appropriate amount of landscaping in that area, the trees will grow, the trees will get taller and broader, and 7.5 feet they will fall right over back in our property, making it even smaller than it is today. Great example, if you take a look at what's going on at Halstead Estates right below us, and somebody pointed out that they may talk about the fact that there are 2 additional ponds just to the south of Chelsea Crossing. Those lots, those 5 lots in the corner will now be completely encased in detention pond hell. So if you think it's hard to sell homes now, wait till we try to sell those homes completely surrounded on 2 sides by detention ponds. The one nice thing, however, about Halstead Estates when they designed those detention ponds, and I don't know if it was the planning commission or whoever, but I thank whoever did it, they were smart enough at the time to move the ponds, and I measured it out, it's roughly 50 or 60 feet from the property lines. Do they look attractive? No. They're full of algae, full of weeds. They smell. There are mosquitoes. I walked the dog around there, so I know. There are plenty of geese, and there's the benefit of the geese. If you consider fertilizer a benefit, they provide plenty of it. So having those detention ponds there is not a good thing. I understand we need water management. However, they are set back far enough that the safety issue doesn't exist for those homes in the corner. The visual aspects, although not appealing, are tolerable. So again, I thank whoever laid out the design of those detention ponds because I believe they did take some of those things into an account. If you look at the way the ponds are laid out, I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that I'm a simpleton, not an attorney, but I look at it and I say, wow, if I'm those lots and I'm lot 9, I'll never see those detention ponds. They won't exist in my mind. They are completely sheltered by the beautiful landscaping and the trees that we've talked about on the inside of the property. Yet for some reason, we find it completely conscionable to tear down the trees on the western side between our subdivision and theirs. I can only assume that the interests of Lot 9 and the others are being put completely ahead of the interests of our own. A little bit like a David and Goliath story, and I'm feeling a little bit like David at the moment. As you also pointed out, there are a number of mature trees. Look, when the Chelsea Crossing development was made, they cut back about 10 feet from where the actual property lines are. We've all lived there 15, 16 years, and there have been some beautiful trees planted close to the property line, and there are actually a couple that are on the other side of it. We've mentioned, or somebody mentioned, those pine trees. They're 16-year-old, extremely tall pine trees. To tear those down would be, again, unconscionable. It completely destroys the harmonious lifestyle and the environment that we've had for 16 years in that area. It seems to me that a redesign of the ponds and moving them farther back to account for an appropriate amount of landscaping, an appropriate amount of safety barrier, is a completely reasonable request. We talked a little bit about maintenance. I guess it's kind of a good thing that those ponds are so close to us. The residents of Apple Grove don't really have to worry about maintenance because I guarantee you I'll be the first one to pick up the phone monthly to report all of the issues with the maintenance ponds. Since they can't see the maintenance pond, or they can't see the detention ponds, they'll never identify an issue unless someone calls them. And I guess apparently that's going to be my job now for the next 15 years. Dead trees, overgrown weeds, smells, geese that I can't control will now be my problem to report. I think that's just an absolutely unfair request, and again goes to the David and Goliath approach of this development. Push it on the small so that the large can have the big lot. I think that's completely unfair. We've talked a little bit about the flooding that will occur. Again, it doesn't take a brain scientist to figure out that if you have pipes that can accommodate less than a 10-year flood, when that 10-year rain or flood comes, there won't be enough capacity in those pipes to handle the water to get it to the basin in the first place. That rain will wash directly downhill into our backyards. Now, as was stated earlier, my basement's been dry for 16. I'd like to keep it that way. But with this current plan, I am now extremely concerned that even minor runoff, uncontrolled by the foliage that'll now be torn out, will cause my sump pump to start running on a continuous basis. So I'd like to ask you to do a couple of things. One, I'd like to ask you to come visit the property. It's a lot easier to see and understand walking in that corner and along the whole corridor. Secondly, and most importantly, I'd like to ask you to table the decision to approve this development today. We've worked with the development company. We've asked to see plan changes. We asked even this week, did you make any changes based on the meeting with Ed? We were told no. So to have those plans brought up today clearly should not even be on the docket. This is a review of the current proposed development, not the changes. We've had not a chance to look at those plans. For us not to have a chance to review those plans and feel comfortable with the flooding requirements, the placement of the ponds, the destruction of the trees, I believe again would be completely unfair to the homeowners. I'm asking you to consider a setback of the ponds in at least in accordance with what Halstead Estate provided. Again, I roughly estimated it about 50 feet. 15 feet does not allow enough area for foliage trees to be appropriately planted and grown and stayed on that side of the property line. I ask you to consider the flooding issue. And again, since we haven't had a chance to review the current designs, I can't tell you whether we feel comfortable or not with what they've done. There's a number of things that could be done with landscaping, using the dirt that comes out of the detention ponds. A number of things could be done there to control the flooding potential. I'd ask you to consider that. I'd also ask you to consider a more stringent maintenance guideline. Again, if the ponds are located where they are today, you're going to be hearing from me a lot more than you'll hear from the Homeowners Association. I'd ask again that you delay the ruling until we have an opportunity to review the current plan that's being proposed in addition to the new plan that popped up again just a couple of days ago. I've referred to section 2783. I'll also refer to section 34553 that states that the objective of the landscaping ordinance is, among other things, to buffer potentially incompatible land uses from one another and to conserve the value of our properties. I don't know about you, but the value of my property is a thing that I get concerned about just about every day, considering the way the market moved again today. So please take all of those things that I've mentioned into consideration, and I appreciate the time to talk.
Thank you.